Hi, today I'm talking about the silent movie star Florence La Badie, who died in 1917 at the age of 29. Florence La Badie was an American actress. She was born on the 27th of April 1888 to Horace Blanchard Russ and Marie Chester Russ in New York City. She had an older brother named Horace who was born in 1884. Her father died in 1890 and her mother couldn't look after her, so at the age of 3 she was adopted by attorney Joseph E. La Badie and Amanda J. La Badie, whose maiden name was Victor, who were from Montreal, Canada. There is a copy of her adoption order online which is dated 4th of November 1891. Her brother Horace was adopted by his father's great aunt. Florence was interviewed for a magazine article and she said her name should be pronounced La Badie, so Lahbadee. She disliked it when people mispronounced it by saying La Badie, as it made her think of a coroner's inquest. Florence was beautiful, and so after her schooling she found work as a fashion model and as an artist's model in New York City. It is hard to tell her eye colour from black and white photos, but she had blue eyes. She then got into the theatre and met a fellow Canadian actress, Mary Pickford. It was Mary who suggested Florence should try to get into the fledgling movie business. In 1909, Mary invited Florence to watch a picture being made at the Biograph studio in New York City. Florence got a bit part and met director D.W. Griffith. She appeared in the 1909 short film The Politician's Love Story, starring Mack Sennett, which was uncredited. She appeared in the short films The Salvation Army Lass and In the Window Recess, both in 1909, where she gained a screen credit. She was in over 30 silent films for Biograph and about 166 silent films for the Thanhouser company, based in New Rochelle, New York, from 1911 till 1917. The movies she was known for were The Tempest in 1911, Cinderella in 1911, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Petticoat Camp, both in 1912, The Portrait of Lady Anne in 1912, Evidence of the Film in 1913, and Cymbeline in 1914. Her best-known work was the 1914 to 1915 serial The $1 Million Mystery. It was about a secret society called the Black Hundred who tried to get hold of $1 million. 22 chapters were written and the conclusion to the serial wasn't written. Thanhouser Company ran a competition offering a prize of $10,000 to anyone who submitted the best idea of how the serial should end. The winner was a secretary named Ida Damon from St. Louis, Missouri. That was a lot of money in those days. I wonder what she did with it. Buy a house? Florence became a huge star of the Thanhouser studio and was regularly featured in the fan magazines of the time. Her nickname was Fearless Flo because she performed a lot of her stunts. She admitted in a magazine article that she was afraid when she had to hold the reins of horses pulling a wagon at speed downhill, as she'd never done it before. In an article written in Photoplay magazine in 1912, it says Florence would get to and from the Thanhouser studio by riding a high-powered motorcycle, and that she'd taken up flying with the Captain Baldwin. She also loved racing in automobiles. Her favourite sport was swimming. She enjoyed horseback riding. She liked dogs and was a dog owner. While making a picture, she was knocked unconscious when a horse's hoof hit her on the chin. During World War I, an article in the New York Morning Telegraph in 1915 said that a soldier had written to Florence from the front line and sent her 120 photographs of the horrors of war. Florence converted the photos into slides and held lectures showing them to the audiences. Florence was engaged to Val Hirsch, a Cadillac salesman who also acted in small roles at the Thanhouser studio. But then she met Daniel Carson Goodman, who was a screenwriter at the studio. He was also a licensed doctor, and he was the person who accompanied filmmaker Thomas H. Ince off William Randolph Hearst's yacht, the Oneida. I've made a video about the Thomas H. Ince mystery. She ended it with Val and became engaged to Daniel, pictured here. She received proposals for marriage from her fans. She apparently thought it was good luck to send the author of each 100th letter a gift with a note. On the 28th of August 1917, Daniel had been on holiday in the Adirondack Mountains. Florence took a train to Albany to meet him. They got into her car at some point for the journey back to New York City. At about 6:30 p.m. they came upon a couple of trucks, and to avoid crashing into them, she swerved on Soap Hill in Croydon, which is now Croydon-on-Hudson. The car hurtled down a steep hill and overturned because the brakes failed. According to the Democratic Register, Daniel suffered a fractured rib, fractured collarbone, and cuts to his leg, which included his Achilles tendon being severed. Other reports say his leg was broken. Florence was seriously injured with a broken pelvis and internal injuries. They were attended to by Dr. Miller at the scene and then transported to Ossining Hospital. Florence was under the care of Dr. Charles C. Sweet, and she underwent an operation. She was thought to be doing well, but then she died of blood poisoning, otherwise known as septicemia, at 1:35 p.m. on the 13th of October 1917. The blood poisoning was due to the compound fracture of the pelvis. She was the first big movie star to die at the height of her fame. She was interred into a plot bought by her grandmother, Mrs. Louisa Russ, for her in Greenwood Cemetery, Brooklyn, New York. The grave was unmarked. However, Florence's death is the subject of a mystery. Charles Foster, in his book Stardust and Shadows, Canadians in Early Hollywood, said that Valentine Grant, who was the wife of Sidney Olcott, a Canadian film producer and director, told him a story. She said President Woodrow Wilson, pictured here, was crazy about Florence and invited her to the White House in December 1914 and impregnated her, which resulted in Florence giving birth to an illegitimate baby in the autumn of 1915. To cover up the scandal, the brake lines on her car had been cut. One of Florence's movies that has survived, Crossed Wires, which was released in June 1915, doesn't show Florence looking pregnant. All through 1915, Florence was making films. There are various facts that are wrong in the book. The baby was named George Woodrow Smith, but people have done searches and the birth certificate doesn't exist. Her last movie was The Man Without a Country, which was released after her death. Here she is in the movie with Holmes Herbert. In 2014, Ned Thanhouser, the grandson of Edwin Thanhouser, the founder of the Thanhouser Company, raised $6,000 to pay for a headstone for Florence's grave. The headstone was placed on her gravesite on her 126th birthday on the 27th of April 2014. Inscribed on the stone is Fearless Flow. That was so tragic, wasn't it? Dying at the height of her fame. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.